the day everything changed, expanded and deeper version. My name is Alina Chen. I turned 62 last month. This story begins on the afternoon of Margaret's funeral, February 12th, a Thursday. The rain was relentless, cold, gray, the kind that finds every seam in your coat and soaks straight through to your skin. I'd stayed at the graveside until the very end. I watched them lower her dark walnut casket into the ground, watched the dirt start to cover it, watched the workers smooth it over with their shovels. I didn't leave until the last person had walked away. My hands were still trembling when I finally got back in my car, and they hadn't stopped by the time I pulled into my own driveway. I opened the front door, stepped inside, and the smell of wet wool and old wood hit me at the same time as the sight of them. They were already seated in my living room, like they'd been waiting for hours. Ryan, my husband since we were both 39, sat in Margaret's chair. The burgundy wingback with the faded floral cushion she always kept behind her lower back because the pain from the second stroke never really went away. He had never sat in that chair while she was alive. Not once. Not even when she asked him to move it closer to the window so she could see the birds. Daniel, our son, 24, sat on the sofa, elbows on his knees, staring at his hands. Chloe, Ryan's younger sister, 38, the one who calls herself a lifestyle influencer and gets paid to post pictures of expensive coffee and beach vacations, sat beside him, legs crossed, big black sunglasses still on her face. And a man I'd never seen before in my life, thin, mid-50s maybe, gray suit, leather folder on his lap, sitting in the armchair by the window like he was part of the furniture. I stood in the doorway, dripping. My good black shoes left wet footprints on the hardwood floor Margaret used to polish every Saturday morning, even when her hands shook too much to hold the rag properly. She taught me how to do it. Small circles, a drop of olive oil, buff until it shines. I could almost hear her saying, "Put a towel down, Alina, you'll ruin the wood." "Alina," Ryan said, without getting up, "we need to talk." His voice was different, flat, cold, like he'd practiced the sentence in front of a mirror. I was still holding my purse. My coat was heavy with rain. "Can I at least take my coat off?" I asked quietly. Chloe didn't look up from her phone. "It won't take long." She still had those oversized black sunglasses on. She'd worn them at the cemetery too, even though the rain was coming down so hard the umbrella barely made a difference. Now she was wearing them inside, in my dim living room, like she didn't want anyone to see her eyes. I walked slowly to the hall tree by the door, the antique wooden one with the brass hooks that Margaret bought at an estate sale in the spring of 2019. She told me the whole story while I was helping her with the bedpan one morning. How the old man selling it kept calling her, "young lady," even though she was 81, how she'd haggled him down $20 just for fun, how she'd laughed the whole way home in the passenger seat while I drove. That was Margaret, always finding something to laugh about, even when life was stripping pieces of her away. I hung the dripping coat up. Water ran down the wood and pooled on the floor mat. I didn't wipe it, I didn't have the energy. "Sit," Ryan said again. The word sounded like an order. I looked around. Every chair was taken. The sofa had Daniel and Chloe. The wingback had Ryan. The armchair by the window had the lawyer. The only thing left was the small, upholstered footstool in front of the sofa, the one Margaret used to rest her feet on when the swelling got bad. So I sat on the footstool, in my own house. Chloe opened the folder with a soft click. She cleared her throat like she was about to give a presentation. "We found Mom's will," she said. "It was in her nightstand drawer, right behind all the pill bottles." My chest tightened so fast I almost couldn't breathe. I could feel my heart hitting my ribs like it wanted out. "She left the house to Ryan," Chloe continued, reading it slowly, like she was enjoying each word. "Along with her savings account, approximately $480,000. The room seemed to shrink. The air got thicker. I grabbed the edge of the footstool so hard my fingernails dug into the fabric. "And for you," Chloe finally lifted her head. The dark lenses of her sunglasses threw my own reflection back at me, pale face, wet hair plastered to my forehead, eyes red from crying at the grave, mouth slightly open like I'd forgotten how to close it. $5,000, she said, "for your service. 10 years. 10 years of setting alarms every 3 hours through the night, so I could turn her body and prevent the terrible bed sores I'd seen ruin other patients when I still worked at the hospital. 10 years of mixing formula at 2 in the morning, flushing the feeding tube, checking for blockages, praying it didn't get infected again because the last infection almost killed her. 10 years of sponge baths with warm water and no-rinse soap, of changing adult diapers without making her feel small, of crushing pills into applesauce because she couldn't swallow whole ones anymore, of driving her to chemo appointments with the window cracked because the smell of the hospital made her gag, of sitting beside her through radiation burns that left her skin raw and weeping, of holding her hand during the final hospice weeks when every shallow breath sounded like it cost her everything she had left. 10 years of being the only one who showed up, every single day, every single night, $5,000. That can't be right, I whispered. My voice sounded very small. Ryan spoke quickly, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. Mom was on a lot of heavy medication toward the end. She wasn't always clear. Her mind wandered. She was clear, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. She told me many times, late at night when it was just the two of us, after you'd gone to bed and Chloe had stopped answering her calls, she held my hand and said the house would be mine. She said it was only fair after everything I'd given up. Chloe tapped the paper with one long, manicured fingernail. It's not in here, it's very clear, black and white. The lawyer cleared his throat. He had a calm, professional voice, the kind people use when they deliver bad news for a living. Mrs. Chen, my name is Brian Patterson. I've been retained to read this document aloud and to inform you that you have 48 hours to vacate the premises. 48 hours? I turned to my son. Daniel, he wouldn't meet my eyes. He kept staring at his clasped hands, fingers twisting together. Dad said this is what Grandma wanted, he mumbled. The house, everything. The lawyer repeated it like he was reading from a script. If you have not left voluntarily within 48 hours, we will be forced to initiate formal eviction proceedings. I stood up slowly. My legs felt like they were made of water, but I refused to let them shake in front of these people. I understand, I said. They all looked at me like I'd said something impossible. Maybe they'd been braced for screaming, for tears, for me to throw something, for anything except quiet. I'd spent 10 years learning how to keep my face calm when everything inside was screaming. You don't always fight the battle the second it hits you. Sometimes you wait, you watch, you breathe, and then you start planning. I turned around, walked upstairs to the bedroom Ryan and I had shared since Daniel was in middle school. The bedroom where I'd spent hundreds of nights lying awake, listening to Margaret's breathing through the old baby monitor we'd bought for her room, ready to run down the hall if her pattern changed even a little. I pulled my old Navy suitcase out of the closet, the one with the broken zipper I used when we moved Margaret in after her first major stroke. I started packing. My old scrubs I hadn't worn in a decade. The little sapphire jewelry box Margaret gave me on my 50th birthday. She wrapped it herself even though her hands shook so badly, she dropped the ribbon twice. The photo albums Ryan always wanted to throw away because everything's digitized now anyway. And at the very bottom of the suitcase, I placed the plain white envelope Margaret had pressed into my hand 3 days before she died. That afternoon she had been awake, really awake. The morphine fog had lifted for a few precious hours. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and whispered, Elena, my children are not good people. I waited too long to admit it, I'm sorry. I told her not to say that. She said, you always defend everybody else. Now it's time somebody defended you. Then she pulled the envelope out from under her pillow. Don't open this until I'm gone, promise me, I promised. And I kept that promise, even through the funeral, even when every instinct inside me screamed to tear it open in the car on the way home. I zipped the suitcase. I carried it downstairs, past them, past the living room, past Margaret's chair where Ryan was still sitting like he already owned everything. I didn't say another word. I just walked out the door, into the rain, suitcase in one hand, keys in the other. I spent the next 48 hours in a motel off Route 9, room 214. The key card didn't work the first 3 times. The room smelled like old cigarettes and bleach, and the heater rattled all night like someone was kicking it. I paid for 2 weeks with the $5,000 Chloe had already wired to my account. That was it. That's all 10 years of my life was worth, apparently. I didn't cry in that room, not once. I just sat on the edge of the bed, suitcase open, staring at the envelope Margaret gave me. I'd kept my promise. I hadn't opened it yet. But the third morning, when the rain finally stopped and the sun came through the dirty window blinds in weak stripes, I knew it was time. I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out two things. A brass key with a tag that said First National Bank Safe Deposit Box 417, and a single sheet of paper in Margaret's handwriting, shaky, slanted, but hers. Alina, I know my children. I've known them a long time. I prepared for this. The real will is in the box. There's a video too. Call Bernard Winters at Winters and Associates. His number is inside. I'm so sorry you're going through this. You deserved better from all of us. Love, Margaret. I sat there holding the note until my eyes burned. Then I called the number. Bernard Winters' office was downtown, above the little bakery where Margaret used to buy cinnamon rolls before she couldn't swallow solid food anymore. You could still smell them drifting up through the floorboards. Bernard was probably 70, maybe older. Kind eyes, warm handshake, the kind of man who'd heard every kind of family story and still looked at you like you mattered. Mrs. Chen, he said the moment I walked in, I've been expecting you. Margaret came to me 8 months ago. She was very clear-headed, very determined. He took the key, opened the safe deposit box. Inside, a new will dated last June, notarized, witnessed by him and 2 colleagues, filed with the county. The house was mine. $400,000 was mine. Ryan and Chloe were each left $25,000, only if they accepted it peacefully, no contest. Daniel had $100,000 in a trust, to be released on his 25th birthday, 10 months away. There was also a strong no-contest clause. If anyone fought the will, they forfeited everything. But they showed me a different will, I said. Chloe had it in her hands. Bernard's voice dropped. Forgery. And forging a will is a felony in this state. He opened his laptop and inserted a USB drive. Margaret's face filled the screen. She was wearing the soft blue cardigan I bought her 2 Christmases earlier. She looked tired, thin, but calm and resolute. She said her full name, said she was of sound mind, said she was recording this so nobody could twist her words later. She talked about her children, how they'd been absent for years. Brief holiday visits, short calls if they called at all. Requests for money, never offers of time. Then she spoke about me. Alina has been my only caregiver for 10 years. She bathed me when I couldn't bathe myself. She fed me when I couldn't feed myself. She held my hand through pain that would break most people. She gave up her nursing career, her sleep, her health, her life, so I could keep my dignity. Everything I own, the house, the money belongs to Alina. She has earned it 1,000 times over. My children will receive something because they are my children and I love them, despite everything. But if they try to take from Alina what she has rightfully earned, then they will receive nothing. That is my final word. The screen went black. Bernard poured me a glass of water. He waited until I could breathe again. There's more, he said gently. She kept records, journals, emails, dates they didn't show up, hospice notes. Every nurse who saw her in the final weeks wrote the same thing. The only family member present was you. Pharmacy receipts showing you paid for her medications out of pocket when insurance denied coverage and Ryan said he couldn't help. I never kept track of any of it. I just did what needed to be done. Margaret kept track, Bernard said quietly. She knew you wouldn't fight for yourself, so she fought for you. I filed a police report the next day. 3 days later, I was carrying boxes back into the house, my house, when 2 patrol cars pulled up outside. I watched from the upstairs window. Officers knocked. Ryan opened the door. I saw his face change the moment they showed their badges. They arrested him right there on the front porch of the house that was never his. Chloe, too. She'd been inside, helping him price Margaret's furniture and jewelry to sell. That night my phone rang. Mom, Daniel's voice sounded very small like he was 10 again. I didn't know. Dad showed me the paper. He said it was real. I thought you were just grieving too hard. I thought you left because of Grandma. I didn't know it was fake. Did you help him write it? I asked. No, God, no, I swear, I only saw it afterward. I should have asked you. I should have checked. I should have. You should have visited her, I said quietly. Even once. Called more than once a month. Offered to sit with her one single night so I could close my eyes for more than 3 hours at a time. Long silence on the other end. But you were 23, I continued. And your father told you everything was fine. So you believed him, I understand. I'm so sorry, Mom. She left you money, I told him. $100,000. You'll get it when you turn 25. Use it to become someone better than you've been. Daniel started coming over again. The first few visits were awkward. We'd sit in the living room, now legally and completely mine, drink tea, stare at the floor, not know what to say. But slowly we found words. He asked about Margaret. I told him the real stories, not the polished ones. How one morning she laughed so hard at a terrible joke I made that her IV line came loose, and we both panicked trying to fix it. How she'd insist on putting on her favorite coral lipstick, even when she couldn't leave her bed. How she once took my hand and whispered, "You're the daughter I wish I'd raised from the beginning." I never sold the house. Instead, I used part of the inheritance to start something real. A support network for family caregivers, especially those caring for elderly relatives. Respite care, legal advice, counseling, peer support groups, financial resources. I named it Margaret's House. Daniel volunteers there every weekend now. He sets up folding chairs, makes coffee, listens to people who are too tired to talk much. He's learning what I learned. Caring for someone isn't a burden. It's a privilege. And sometimes it's the most important thing you'll ever do. 1 year after the funeral, on the exact anniversary, Daniel and I planted roses in the backyard, right in the sunny corner where Margaret used to sit in her wheelchair on good days, face tilted toward the light like she was drinking it in. She knew, didn't she? Daniel asked, hands buried in the soil. She knew what Dad and Aunt Chloe were planning. She suspected, I said, and she protected me the only way she still could, with evidence, with records, with the truth. We planted in silence for a while. Then Daniel looked up at me. "Thank you," he said, "for not giving up on me." "You're my son," I answered simply. Margaret taught me many things, especially in the end. She taught me that family isn't only blood. It's who shows up, who stays, who does the hard, quiet, unglamorous work of love when no one else is watching. And she also taught me something much harder. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is draw a firm line. Say enough. And after years of protecting everyone else, finally protect yourself. I still live in the house. I still run Margaret's house from the same living room where she spent her last years. Every spring the roses bloom. And every spring I think of the second note I found months later, tucked into the back of the oldest photo album, written in the same trembling hand. "Dear Alina, if you're reading this, then my plan worked. You're home, you're safe. You're finally allowed to take up space. You've spent too long being everyone else's foundation. Now build something for yourself. With all my gratitude, all my love, and all my pride, Margaret." When I read it, I cried. Not only from grief, from relief, from gratitude, from a quiet, hard-won feeling that finally felt like freedom. The house is beautiful. The money is helpful. But the greatest gift Margaret gave me was permission to stop being small, to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing for existing. I am Alina Chen. I am 62 years old. I am the owner of this house. I am the mother of a son who is learning how to show up. I am the director of a place that helps people who feel invisible. And I am the woman who was loved enough, by someone who barely knew me at first, but who saw me clearly enough to fight for me even after death. That is worth more than any house, any money, any will. But it is nice to have the house. And the roses, and the life I finally get to live.